my dad sold Chevys, so I was a Chevy guy. And my first car at 16 was well, most of you guys would know that it's 1966 Chevelle SS 396. So that was a muscle car, but you know what? You couldn't hang with that Cuda. I'll tell you right now, that Cuda was so fun. And the one that's on display here, have you ever seen a more beautiful car than it? It is absolutely gorgeous. Wow, yeah, so that's it.
Hey, Michael, didn't you learn to drive in that car?
As a matter of fact, I did, Don. I did learn to drive in the Cuda. I think you taught me how to drive in several alarming experiences for the so-called adults in the room. Yeah, I did learn to drive.
Wait, what were you, 12 or 13?
13 probably? Yeah, I think I made Phantasm 13, 14. So yeah, I learned to drive in that car and others, but Bill and Don both taught me to drive, and I didn't have to drive it too much, but you know, there was probably some gear grinding going on. That's my story, I'm sticking to it.
And I had to babysit him. I had to babysit this kid. And if anybody needs any babysitting services, he will recommend me.
Of course I would recommend it. You can imagine how it's pretty obvious that I really didn't need any babysitting at that time, so... Who was babysitting whom, I wonder.
He was a bad boy.
I have a CUDA experience, so I got to ride in 3, right, next to Reggie while I was fixing my nunchucks. And I never rode in a muscle car before. And who knows why they call them a muscle car. So I'm sitting in the car and I'm playing with my nunchucks and I'm going, ooh, that feels good. I mean, and I'm not trying to be funny, literally, it just vibrates your butt.
Thank you for that answer.
And then it goes up, you know, and I'm going like, yeah, Reg, yeah, this is really, you know, so it's a really wonderful car. And so any woman, you know, don't let the men have the muscle cars. It was nice.
Yeah, you know, I just wanted to get a word in here. I grew up in Long Beach, California. And in the 60s and stuff, boy, that's when all the fast cars were being, you know, jammed. We had this street that we would go and race on, and yeah, the cops seemed to leave us alone, far out, you know. And so we just, you know, we just had fun out there, you know. And so anyway, and you know, you guys know.
Tell them about your first fast car.
What's that?
Tell them about your first fast car.
Oh yeah, gee, you want me to tell you guys about my first fast car? And yeah, it was 327, 300 horsepower Chevelle. Yeah. It was yellow, and it was a lot of fun to drive. And like I said, we had places that we would, you know, go on weekends and stuff, Friday to Sunday, you know, and. Well, the cops didn't bother us, I mentioned that before. And we just go out there and, you know, we had the street marked off for, you know, like a quarter mile race. And, God, we had a lot of fun. You know, we'd go to this little place to eat called Grissinger's in North Long Beach. And, and then, you know, about, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, we'd jam over to Cherry Avenue, which was just a couple of blocks away. And boy, we had some fun.
Hey, while we're talking cars, everybody here was at the fateful hearse pipe ramp stunt by Bob Ivy. You might want to ask to get their recollections of that. I remember you came out, Michael, and you were there, Bill.
I was there. Yeah.
I want everyone, I want to hear from everyone on that, please.
Well, Michael set it up.
Yeah.
What happened that day?
Why do I have to set it up?
Well, I'm trying.
So Bob Ivy, one of the greatest stuntmen of all time, who performed the jump in question, drove the pink hearse down a track in the middle of Malibu or somewhere.
Mulholland Drive.
Mulholland Drive on what would be a very dangerous kind of curvy road, but here he comes and he says, I'm gonna go, and I'm really gonna go. At the end of the pipe ramp, there's a special little kicker at the top.
Yep.
So here comes the guy, and there's a lot of people there. Usually it's not going to be people making Phantasm films, but all of a sudden that night there was a camera, there was news crew and all kinds of things. And Bob Ivy comes zooming down the road, and he's going way too fast. And I'm thinking, you know, that is really not safe. And you know, he ends up going 90 miles an hour or something like that, and the car flew up into the air, and it hits that thing at the end, and it's flying, and it's spinning like this, and it's going like this, and I thought that's not a survivable crash. I don't care what a professional stuntman says. Nobody's coming out of that thing alive. It was fairly terrifying. The car hit the asphalt way, way down the road, and people screamed, women cried, I'm not kidding you. Everybody ran to what was sure to be a death scene. It was going to be horrible. It was shocking. It was horrible. It was terrifying. And then somehow the guy survived, and he came out of there. And then next thing you know, he was sitting in the director's chair, and I was his eyes were bleeding, his ears were bleeding. He was fucked up, and he wasn't really all that coherent. And I walked over to him, and I was like, "Bob, are you all right?" And he's, I did it for Phantasm. Whatever.
By the way, Bob Ivy came back to portray the title character Bubba Hotep as the mummy.
Bubba Hotep.
Bob actually told me that he took a nap, as he put it, when he hit.
Oh,
And
yeah, he was
taking a nap when you're a stunt driver means you were knocked out.
Yeah.
They don't say we passed out or.
A concussion. He had a concussion.
Yeah, he took a nap.
Yeah, I remember Bob, it took him a while just to come to, and he was helped out, and then he started strolling back towards where we were all gathered, and I went up to him, I said, Bob, how you doing? He goes, I'm not doing this anymore. And then we broke for lunch, which was a weird time to break to get something to eat. You know, I mean, it was, it was a horrific thing. But 80 miles an hour, I think, was the...
Yeah, he hit the ramp at that. He did something like 200 feet in the air with a 6,000-pound car. And as I remember, we pulled him out of the wreckage and sat him in a director's chair. And Carrie Pryor, who had done all the sphere work, the special effects, came over, Bob, what can I get you on a drink? I says, no, Carrie, I want you to make me a sphere. And Carrie said, okay, man, you got it. He built him a beautiful presentation, the Phantasm sphere, which he still has today.
Yeah, and I wasn't filming that day, so I came, and the crew is just so wonderful. So I brought snacks, right? So we're on Mulholland Drive, and I was like feeding the crew, you know, and they were like, Gloria, what are you serving us? Like, oh, I'm just here. And when he did it, you know, I'm standing in the road, and you see this light, and it's like a blur, and it's going round and round and round, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I guess he got to all of them first, and when I got a moment with him, you know, I said, that was cool, and he says, yeah. And I think that was the reason that after that I started doing some stunt work. You know, I worked with Bob Black, you know, he's a black stuntman, and doing stunt doubles in Hollywood, because that was the most fearless thing I've ever seen. That was really cool.
I got to prep Bob for the full body burns on Phantasm 4 Ravager. We were out in the Alabama hills in California, in Death Valley, and so I'm putting the fire retardant gel, which is ice cold, and he doesn't have a flame suit on. He has long johns, so I'm like covering him head to toe with the mask on, with the flame gel, and and he goes, you know, in some states, we're both from Texas, And he goes, you know, in some states, we'd be engaged. I said, in some states, we'd be married. So I put the flame gel on him, and then he does the full body burn, and it compromises the exterior of the combat boots that he was wearing. So, because he had done the stuff where the tall man comes out of the flames, right? So the next setup is a few hours later, and it's the trooper, the demon trooper comes out of the car, right? And so we're in a rush because we've got 5 cameras set up on it, and because we want to make sure you get the coverage, you know. And they decided, he and his guy decided they weren't going to take back any of the fuel with them. And so they overloaded the cones, which is basically, these cones are like this so that the flames go out and make a bigger burn, you know, for the camera. And so he overloaded the fuel cones, and so when they went off, they kept reigniting as we put them out. And you know you're in a little town when the person next to you is like this big and she served you your breakfast the day before, you know. So anyway, they couldn't get the flames out, and I'm a former firefighter, so I just kind of grabbed the extinguisher away from him and put it out, and he was standing in a puddle of flame, you know, of fuel, and it kept reigniting, and so I just kind of like handed her the fire extinguisher, grabbed him and pulled him out and handed him to somebody, I'm not sure who, and so I handed him off, and he got the fire squeezed out, and then as we cut off the boots, we realized that his ankles had been blistered, and I went, oh my God, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, this is my fault. He goes, hell no, it's not your fault. I told you I wasn't gonna, you know, change the boots out. And I told you I wasn't gonna put the flame retardant inside. And I went, I still feel terrible. But he goes, no, it's not your fault. It's not your fault.
All right, thank you. So we need to get some back over here. Yes, ma'am.